my phone over there. No.
It'll be getting in there, and now it'll be like one, it should be probably like 20 dB below. I can go check it. Yeah, it should be up there, right?
Did you hand me cables up there?
Oh, I didn't know that's right. Oh, I gotta get it down.
They're not looking for more.
I can take it.
I do not have a phone.
Hello folks, welcome to Creekside Crossings. We're glad to see you tonight. We invite you to stand as you are able, because we're ready to worship God. How about you? Everybody ready to sing God's praises? I can't hear you very well. You ready to sing God's praises and clap your hands and dance? Woo! We are so glad you're here. We celebrate your presence in this place. We believe the promise of God's presence, and we sing about it, and we worship, and we are so glad to be here together. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an amazing, amazing thing. We're starting a new series tonight talking about enough. What is enough? How do we discover the joy through simple living and through God's abundance in our lives? And really, who of us really needs anything more than what God is bringing to us right here, right now? That's just something we're celebrating and something we love to sing about. We love to sing about a God who absolutely loves us beyond all measure. A God who says, I want to be your best friend, and that's what this song is about. 1, 2, 3. Peace October. We are glad you're here. You know, October is kind of when a lot of really cool stuff kicks off in the life of this church. The autumn season is kind of upon us, and sometimes the air turns cooler, which it is a little bit tonight. Sometimes it gets warmer, which it will be next week. But we have all kinds of fun things. We have our harvest fairs during October, which is one of my favorite things. And I understand you can buy tickets for the harvest fair luncheon on October 16th. That's a week from this next Friday. So make sure you get your luncheon tickets. Carol's and my 27th wedding anniversary, so you come and toast us. Also, October is the Memory Walk, and you might see Bonnie Bowling going a little bit crazy and always wearing her yellow tennis shoes and her purple shirt. Memory Walk is one of our favorite events here at the church, and one of the things that really is near and dear to our hearts. And we're especially blessed tonight. Harriet Palmer is here. And Harriet has a very special faith witness that she'd like to share with her personal experiences with Alzheimer's disease and how important the support of this community is. So Harriet, it's great to have you here tonight.
Thanks, Dirk. I imagine many of you feel as I did about Alzheimer's. It's a terrible thing that usually happens to other people. At least I didn't think about it much until my youngest brother, Pete, began to develop some of the early signs of the disease about 5 years ago. Short-term memory loss, confusion with what he'd done recently in the past few days, what was going to happen today and tomorrow. He started to get sudden flare-ups of anger and frustration, a distinct change from his easygoing personality. He was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at age 57 and put on medication that has slowed the progression. But it will not return him to the capable and happy individual that he was before he turned 58. At the time, it seemed so young for such a diagnosis, but unfortunately it affects too many people in their 40s and 50s, as well as older folks. Pete enjoyed a satisfying career as a pharmacist at a local hospital before Alzheimer's forced him into an early retirement. He is no longer able to participate in many of the activities he and his wife Mary enjoyed with his two energetic sons. He still plays tennis 3 times a week with devoted friends, but finds busy social scenes overwhelming and struggles to understand what is going on in all but the most routine social situations. To watch a beloved family member who used to discuss a multitude of topics become unable to initiate thoughts or activities is painful. Pete knows things are not as they used to be, and he wonders how long before more changes will further limit what he can do. I try to let him know how much sharing with him means to me, and that we will cross that bridge together as things change. My strong faith and wonderful church family at LAUMC are sustaining me through this journey. Meetings, prayers, and loving support from so many people. I have lunch most Mondays with my brother Pete, and we spend 2 to 3 hours reminiscing, talking over old times, reliving the past. And it is good. Pete often repeats things and gets confused about family and friends. Who is where, and what are they doing now? As children develop, they are able to learn and do more complex things. With Alzheimer's, and as I learned with my husband's dementia, the learning and ability often go backward, and it is difficult for loved ones to understand and adapt to the changes. I need to remember people with these problems cannot help the repetition, the forgetting quickly of what was just discussed. It is frustrating for me, but much more frustrating for those with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia. Unfortunately, many of us are going to develop Alzheimer's, and many more of us will watch and help family members and friends deal with this terrible disease. Advances in research and diagnostic tools are providing help for those stricken, as well as offering support for caregivers. New medications are helping to retard the progression. All this is making a difference, but more will not happen without a lot of help. Our community has already done a great deal. Let us all continue to do as much as we can to find a cure. I want to give a big thank you to all who enjoyed Sip, Savor, and Support earlier last month, and all past donations to the Alzheimer's Association. Please support the Alzheimer's Memory Walk and walk with me on October 10th. That's next Saturday. My brother and my husband can't thank you personally, but I can. You do make a difference. Thank you.
Eric, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. So the Memory Walk is Saturday. It's not too late to sponsor a walker. Probably not too late to come and walk with us. And no matter what, let's hold all of our walkers in prayer and just pray that we find an end to this horrible, horrible disease that will affect every single one of us in one way or another.
simplicity, compassion, and generosity. And thinking of that, as Pastor Mark will be speaking to us this evening, right? Correct? Pastor Mark speaking to us. To remember our brothers and sisters in the Philippines, and in Samoa, and in Indonesia. And not to detract from the memory walk, but those of you that are inclined to lend your support to the United Methodist Committee on Relief, which is already active in those locations, ecumenically and interreligiously engaging in relief efforts in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Samoa. You can write a check and indicate down on the memo line, but UMCOR Indonesia, UMCOR Philippines, or UMCOR Samoa, and give the checks to Fred Cove, or place them in the columns where we receive the offering. And 100% of what you give goes there, because through our United Methodist Shared Giving and One Great Hour Sharing Gifts, we pay for all of the administrative overhead in advance. So every penny that you give goes directly and fully and completely to the projects that you generate. Thank you. Also thinking about enough, Mary Jo Bajeda is back at the hospital over in Stanford. She has a bit of an intestinal blockage, and I had a chance to meet her daughter, and a wonderful friend, Pat, has come out from Wisconsin to spend the week with her, especially since Mary Jo's sister has been diagnosed with having cancer as well. And this is really hard for Mary Jo. So prayers for Mary Jo and prayers of gratitude for family and friends that are enough to be with us during those times to help us work it through. I'm going to ask if you have words of joy and concern to be able to share. I'm going to start on this side of the room, and raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone over to you.
I better share this, right, Carol? Otherwise I'll get in trouble. So anyway, Rayleigh and Jenny went to Tucson. Jenny tried out in the youth triathlon on Saturday morning to see if she could qualify for the national race, which was this morning, and she took first place in the national race for 15-year-olds. So, anyway. Yeah, that's right, I'll get in trouble.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I would like you to ask you to pray for Nicholas's classmate, Jack, who had a brain aneurysm this week. He's in ICU at Packard. So please pray for his parents and his sister.
I covered your prayers for my aunt, Ruth Bowinkle, who's had a stroke, and she's now recovering in a Medicare retirement facility. She'll be 89 really soon, and has had all sorts of medical problems these last few years, but the stroke is just another step in that.
I just wanted to give praises to God. I was up at my granddad's house on Tuesday, and I was moving a lot of hay, and my granddad got up to help me and fell off and landed on his back, and they medevaced him out. And fortunately, no broken bones. Didn't break his neck like he thought. And it's just amazing that he's okay and walking around that afternoon. So God really had his hand on that one.
I have a praise. Not that I ever joined the ranks of the unemployed, but tomorrow I get to start a new job at Sun that will lead to a lot less stress for me.
Prayers for all the elderly and their families whose nursing homes are being closed because of allowance cuts with Medicare. There are hundreds of thousands of them closing across the country. And it's heart-wrenching because there's nobody there for them.
I'm just pleased and proud to have my mom here tonight. Faith is here. She lives in the San Jose area and runs a pantry down there in Campbell at the church that I grew up in, and just real happy to have her here.
I just want to ask for prayers of thanks for all our armed forces that are overseas serving for us, and also prayers of safety.
Good to be back home at LAUMC. I ask your prayers for a gay man in Virginia going through a divorce with a homophobic judge.
Nadine, thinking about the Philippines, our prayers for your aunt, right? Do you want to say a word about what she's doing, what she deals with?
Well, in the news, last week there was a typhoon, and this week we were expecting another one that was supposedly going to be a lot worse. And luckily it didn't hit as hard as it did for the typhoon last week. And a lot of family back home is working really, really hard. And from my aunt, thanks for the help here. And it really means a lot to us because it's getting a lot better, but it's still in bad shape. But thank you for the prayers.
And especially because your aunt is the mayor of the town, correct? So she has a lot of responsibility. And she takes it so seriously.
Just wanted to lift up over 90 volunteer teachers and teens in our Sunday school program. They were commissioned this morning, and they're wonderful.
Got one in the back there, Pastor Rick. There's a man wildly waving his hands.
Prayer of gratitude for one of our 8 o'clock warriors, Lily Lambert, turns 90 on Friday. And she would love to hear from anybody that remembers.
Thank you.
I've got a couple too, Pastor Rick. I just want to lift up the Waddle family. When we talk about the Harvest Fair, it's really hard for me to imagine the Harvest Fair without Kendra, but she passed away a little more than a week ago, and we had her services here on Tuesday and on Wednesday, a committal service, and just want to lift them up in our prayers. And also just a prayer of thanksgiving for all the folks up here on the stage. We've been working real hard to kind of revamp our sound and things like that. We have a guest drummer who we brought in to help us with that. He did make sure my mom knows he did not flunk out of school, Mom. He just came home for the weekend. But these guys, we worked real hard yesterday. We were here most of the day yesterday, and I'm just so grateful for people who care that much and who just keep wanting to make things better. It's awesome.
May we join our hearts and spirits together as one in prayer and take a few moments of silence as we thank God for the blessings and the gifts of life and of love and all the enough that we are with each other as God's people together. Each day that we spend one day in God's court. Good loving God, I have to confess, when I think about the word, I think I've had enough, it's because I've really had too much. Too much food, too many Christmas presents, too many blessings. And I thank you for the opportunity to experience real enough of what it is to be your child, of what it is to be amongst people who care for me, for each other, for your world, for all of your children. Help us to think and to know and to experience that enough is a feast. Help us to remember that what counts in what we give and share of ourselves and all that you've entrusted to us. It's a matter of our heart and the generosity and the compassion that flows from it. It's not a matter of guilt and responsibility and obligation. It's a matter of tearful, joyful gratitude and thanksgiving. As we're in places where there's hurt and pain and sorrow, help us to remember that though we don't know what to do, what to say, that we can't make it any different in many ways for many people. It's just enough that we're present. To remember that you're enough for us was to send Jesus to be in our midst. Your Spirit to live and dwell within us. Us to know that we are your beloved children, and at the end of our days, no matter what we've done, accomplished, accumulated, it's just enough that we are loved and have been and always will be. Thank you for this day and this hour of worship that we spend in your courts. It is enough as we are Christ's and you are ours. Amen.
That's why I came tonight.
share that prayer about the grandfather that fell off the hay. Few of us realize how difficult and at times dangerous it is for folks to produce our food. I shared with you my friend who's a rancher up in Northern California getting bucked off a horse and separating his pelvis. Bonnie and I spent the summer of 1974 working for his dad on the ranch, bucking bales of hay. Hardest work I've ever done, had a great summer. Bonnie and I are starting seminary in Southern California, driving down through Redding to get to I-5, and there on the bridge, someone had graffitied in white spray paint over a railroad overpass on this little road. Jesus loves the hay buckers. I think, God bless your grandfather, glad he made it. Did you all see that beautiful full moon last night? Yeah. I mean, it was just all through the night. It was like the backyards were illuminated and the roads were illuminated. It was just huge, that beautiful August clear air and that beautiful moon. I learned long ago in my own travels that when I felt lonely or I was wondering where Bonnie was or I wondered how my mom and dad were, I would look up at the moon or the constellation Orion was my own particular one, and look and think about my family and my loved ones also looking at the moon at the same time, wherever they were on the planet. And that's not a new, I think somebody writes about it in a book somewhere. It's a great idea. But if you ever feel lonely, if you're far from home, if you're thinking about those you love, you look at the moon or the stars and think about those that love you and care about you. You could be looking at that same sky, and you can feel one with the people who are at great distance. I want us to think about Holy Communion that same way today. This little bit of bread, the sacred cup of juice that signifies the sacrament of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection in our lives. And although it's unique to our experience and it stands before us on this altar, today, of all days, the first Sunday of October, we celebrate World Communion Sunday. And it's being celebrated all over the world. And as we look at the elements and as we share them, we can feel that connection with people at great distance, maybe folks we're missing, maybe folks we've never met, but with whom we have something very special in common. Today at Sao Paulo, United Methodist Church in Luanda, Angola, they'll be celebrating Holy Communion. And Sao Paulo is a district in the capital city of Angola, up on the hills. And if you've been in third world at all, the higher you get on the hills, the poorer the people are. And so this is up in the hills. You have to take a taxi or you have to take a Jeep to get up there. The sidewalks and the streets are simply mud and dirt. The sewage runs in troughs dug out and along the dirt. And to get to this little church, you have to go through back alleyways and some pretty scuzzy places to get to this building that might be, half the size of Creekside. And for every worship service they have at Sao Paulo, over 400 people will come. The folks who come late stand on the outside of the walls and listen through the open windows so that they can hear the service and sing the songs. The kids have Sunday school in the alleyway. They might be able to have the chalkboard. And you and I here at LAUMC help support that church. You may not be aware that our outreach council helps support Sao Paulo Methodist Church in Luanda, Angola. And that for us, the little money we send makes sure that they have a pastor every year. And they're having communion there today. As are the men that will gather, a lot of them about right now, because in most prisons here in California, they have chapel around 5 or 6 in the evening on Sundays. And the men at Pelican Bay High Security Prison, at Folsom Prison outside of Sacramento, and the one in Cochran, have United Methodist chaplains, or chaplains that are supported by our United Methodist Church. And today they'll have Holy Communion together. And what they did to find themselves in this current circumstance, we don't really want to know. A lot of those men deserve to be there. They do not deserve to see the light of day. They don't deserve to have the freedom that you and I enjoy. But in the process of their prison life, they get an opportunity to try to turn their lives around. Most of them have had addiction problems. And some of them will actually come to know God's love in their lives. And these will probably be men that you and I will never meet. Most of us will never know their names. But they're having Holy Communion tonight. As are the Methodists that are gathering today in Apia, American Samoa. You may not know, we have a bunch of Methodists in American Samoa. I visited there in 1978 doing research for my dissertation. There is an agricultural station on the island of American Samoa, outside of the capital, that is growing alternative crops, alternative cash crops, trying to teach the Samoans other opportunities for their economy. And we have a Methodist bishop whose office is right there in Apia on the main street of the harbor that was just wiped out by tsunami. And we have Methodist pastors there and Methodist churches on that island, and I can tell you tonight they're having Holy Communion. And we may not know these sisters and brothers' names, and we may not ever have the privilege of going in some of these places, but when you and I stand before the table of the Lord tonight and see these elements, although we are very, very different in circumstance and life and language and ritual, it's almost like looking at the moon on a harvest night and feeling connected to strangers all over the world, or maybe those most precious in your life. There's one thing we do have in common is the sacrament that we'll share this evening. There's another thing we all have in common on all of those different situations, regardless of social class, language, and culture. We all struggle as followers of Jesus' teaching with the hold that money has on our lives. We all do. Now, if there's anyone here in the congregation that lives on $900 a year or less, you are the poor. If you live on $900 or more a year, you're the rich. You don't have to raise your hand. According to the World Bank, the average earthling's income is about $900 a year. Over half the world's population lives on $2.50 a day. So if you fit that category, you're the poor. If you don't, listen to this scripture. We're going to put this scripture up. I want us to read it all together. Hopefully it's up there. Let's all read it out loud. It comes from 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter. As for those who in the present age are rich, command them not to be haughty, or to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. To the hills, from where my help comes, my help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. That's, of course, the first two verses of Psalm 121. When the writer of 1 Timothy talks about command the rich not to be haughty, he's talking to us, because we're the rich. And the challenge isn't for us to feel guilty about our wealth. The Bible doesn't say that money is bad. The Bible doesn't condemn those who have wealth. The issue with money and wealth is, what do we do with it? And what hold does it have on our spirituality? The word haughty means proud, arrogant, superior. We begin to think that we're better than other people because we have more money than they do. Well, that's being haughty. Money can be a tool for us. So often, it's an obstacle in the way of living. So often, it's a matter, money is equated with anxiety and fear and scarcity, not simply as a token of the wealth that God has given us and called us to use, to celebrate the enjoyment of this life. And that we have in common in people in Luanda, that we have in common with those men in prison, that we have in common with our friends now trying to rebuild their lives in American Samoa. Will money and the wealth we've been given, at whatever fraction it might be something that weighs us down and turns us away from each other and God? Will it be the pretext for violence and oppression in our lives? Or will money and the wealth we've been given by God become a tool for us to celebrate and enjoy that gift, that life that God has given us in this life? And to do that, the text says, it all really depends on how we relate to God and each other. Because if we relate in relationship to God, we can get money straight. We can figure out how to manage it. And a lot of times it feels like money is managing us. You don't have to raise your hand up, just symbolically. We're looking at the book Enough, discovering the joy and simplicity and generosity. And Bonnie Bowinkle laughs at me when I get up with the audacity to preach under the title of simplicity, because I do not live a simple life. And she witnesses it every day. Yesterday we had a wonderful day off together, and we dedicated it to doing a big pottery project. We're going to have some people come over. So, and I happen to be the cook in the family, and so I made a special breakfast special breakfast muffin from scratch. I made a special dessert for tea at 4 o'clock. I made a crock pot dinner and did 2 loads of laundry before 8 o'clock in the morning. Bonnie. Now, I'm one of those kind of people that when I wake up in the morning, I wake up like, wow, start the day. And I do. Drives my sweetheart crazy. In part because by 5 o'clock at night, I'm as dead as a doornail. And as you well know, preaching at Creekside, I don't have much left. And not that I have much to work on anyway upstairs. Boy, by 5 o'clock, I'm pretty well shot. I struggle to find the balance in life between the opportunity to serve and play and grow and learn and to take care of myself and my needs. Anybody can relate to that? You don't have, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Finding that balance is what we're going to be talking about these next 4 weeks. The book, Adam Hamilton's great book, is talking about finding the balance. In particular about how we use our money, how we plan and manage it, how we plan for the future, how we put wealth into perspective, so that our lives aren't run by guilt about it, but rather it becomes a way for us to celebrate the joy of simplicity and generosity. Well, I look forward to these next days, because I can tell you those things absolutely we share in common with every other human being. Most of Jesus' teachings in the gospel was about money and how to deal with material possessions. Because our Lord knew what hold it could have on our hearts and how it could become an obstacle from enjoying this life. And so we journey together with every other brother and sister in trying to figure that out, to try to find the balance, and try to find God in the midst of our need to provide for our families, plan for the future, and make a difference in the world. That's a great call for us as we take Holy Communion tonight. And especially I felt it was to start on World Communion Sunday. Because as we take these simple elements of Holy Communion, some bread and some juice, we are in connection with people all over the world of different walks of life, different cultures and languages who have that same challenge, same struggle, and same opportunity as we do. Amen. I'd like to ask the communion stewards to come forward along with Pastor Rick, and we're going to read together a wonderful Holy Communion litany together that Pastor Dirk has written just for today. You're going to see it up on the screens. It's a responsive reading. We'll go back and forth. And I don't know if it shows up bold or not, but hopefully you'll get the rhythm of it. And listen to the words as we prepare ourselves to take the sacrament together. God be with you.
And also with you.
God be with you.
In uncertain times.
God be with you.
When it seems that no one else is.
God be with you.
And chase fear away.
God be with you.
And also with you.
And may there be enough.
May God's presence fill us with thanksgiving.
And so we do give thanks.
Because it is the right thing to do, to remind us that God is with us, and that is enough.
Who else? What else could ever be enough?
Nothing. God, you are our strength, our hope, our promise, our joy. We pause before your table to shout your praises. Hosanna, thank you, Hosanna.
Yet we still look everywhere else to find fulfillment.
We confess, God, that we forget to lift our eyes to the hills. We forget to surrender our lives to you. We forget that you fill us with good things beyond anything we could imagine.
Forgive us, God.
Forgive us, God.
Forgive us and make us whole.
Forgive us and make us whole.
God took on flesh to show us the depth of God's love.
And we did not understand it, and it wasn't enough.
Jesus taught us about God's love with parables and stories.
And we did not understand it, and it wasn't enough.
Jesus showed us God's love through miracles and healings.
And we did not understand it, and it wasn't enough.
Jesus sacrificed everything, even his very life, so that we could know the depth of God's love. And God's love was so complete that even death couldn't keep that love silent. And Jesus rose from the grave and lives today even in this very place.
And finally, we begun to understand.
And so we take the bread and we break it as Jesus taught us to do, remembering his body that was broken for us. And every time we do it and share this loaf, God is with us. And it's enough. And we take the cup and we raise it just as Jesus did to his disciples on that night. And we remember how he poured his blood out for us and the forgiveness of sins of the whole world. And remember, he taught us to do this always in his name. And it will always be enough. So friends, I invite you to the table of the Lord tonight. Whether you're visiting for the very first time, regardless of church membership or however old you are, anyone can have these symbols of God's love for you in a United Methodist Church. If you happen to have an allergy to gluten, we have gluten-free bread. Simply, when you're ready, we ask you to come forward and take a piece of bread, break it off from the loaf, dip it into the cup of grape juice, eating both elements at the same time. And we'll form a circle together around the room for the closing prayer. I'd like to ask members of the band to come forward first, because they'll be leading us in song as we take communion.
you with us.
And all of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst and every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough.
And all I have in you is more than enough. And all I have in you is more than enough. Amen. And the feast continues. Join us for dinner. Salmon tetrazzini.